Hi, my name is Eric Johnston, and I'm an aviation photographer. Join me as I document all kinds of aircraft from big to small and cool to, well, really cool. This video is proudly sponsored by Air Models. Check out their excellent variety of resin and die-cast aircraft models, with over 400 commercial and military aircraft and helicopters available. Click the link in the description to see more from Air Models. Hey guys, what's going on? Good evening. Eric Johnston here. Got a really cool guest with us today. A really good friend of mine, Gary Daniels. He is a very accomplished photographer in many different sources and publications, and he's one of the nicest guys that I've ever had the opportunity to meet, which is really something to say. So let me bring him on. I've already got him with us.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'll give you $20 next time I see you.
There we go. Well, nice. It went up to 25, but first time streaming interviewing you, we'll do 20. So thanks for coming on, man. So let's see here. We'll give it a chance to get some people online here, get some people brought up.
Right.
But Gary and I have we've had the opportunity to shoot together on a couple occasions, and we did the we'll go into more detail later on, but we were able to shoot the Classic Jet Aircraft Association at Sulphur Springs, and then we most recently did the Lone Star Stole competition in Gainesville that Doug Jackson put on.
A wet and windy and cold day indeed.
That it was wet and windy and cold, that's for sure. So let me click on the comments here. Now I'm learning the software, so just kind of bear with me. But we should be live on YouTube and on Facebook, on my Facebook page, which is Eric Johnston Photography Videography, and on my YouTube page, which is just simply Eric Johnston. So as people post comments on there, we should be able to correspond with them. Basically, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, with all the streaming stuff. So they're anywhere from 15 to 30-second delay. So just bear with us on that. But Gary, let's go ahead and get started, man.
Okay.
How long have you been into photography?
When I was 16 and trying to figure out what I want to do in life, I started dabbling with photography. Now, think about what photography was in the 70s, obviously film and 35 millimeter. You could aspire and save up if you could buy that. But it took me until my freshman year in college to save up enough money to buy a Minolta SRT 202. So I got started when Minolta was big.
Nice.
And man, I could not put it down. And so I've just loved photography ever since. But I didn't make my career in it. It was even though got my degree at UNT and in design and photography and minored in architecture, I headed off into the creative marketing and design world. And so I spent 30 years in that industry in creative marketing in corporations. So I was always shooting, but not on a professional level because my responsibilities were different, but I was always hiring fantastic photographers, and I learned a lot from those guys along the way as well.
Nice. We just noticed that Kevin Dunn checked in. He and I were chatting through Facebook earlier today.
Great. Hey, Kevin.
So he sent me he made a post on Facebook that he asked me to check out earlier. It was an air-to-air shoot that he was in the Falcon 900. It was an air-to-air shoot. The camera ship was a T-28.
Wow.
And they had a Falcon 10 and a Falcon 900. And it was done. I was looking at the photos going, this is film. So I asked him, I go, how long ago was that? And he goes, probably about 1990. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So.
Well, he had his challenges too, shooting through that Plex. And
he was in one of the subjects. He was in the Falcon 900. So he was in one of the subject airplanes.
Okay, great.
But cool deal, man. So when did you realize that you had an interest to photograph aviation?
Interestingly enough, I haven't been at this long as much as a lot of the folks I've met along the way. So I mentioned that I had a successful career in marketing and corporations for 30 years. And in year 30, just happened to be 2009. And we all know what was going on in 2009, the Great Recession. And one day I walked in my office and just, thinking life was great. And I got called into a meeting. And within 5 minutes, I'm being escorted out to my car in the parking lot. So that was the end of my career. And as the company was hurting and they cut a bunch of guys, a bunch of middle management, upper people.
Oh, no.
And so they whacked us. And so that was a shock. That was very late, 2009. And I don't mind saying this because we're kind of in a weird time now.
Very true.
And so there's a lot of people receiving this shock of losing their job at this time. And I'm so tied into that. And if any of you that are listening are experiencing that, my heart goes out to you. That shock is incredible. And I have to admit, 2010, I fell off into a pretty incredible depression.
Really?
And I still thought that I would have another 10 years of great career. I had a great career. And so anyway, lucky enough, early 2010, I'd been out of work now for about 4 or 5 months, just could hardly get out of bed every day. I mean, I was just so depressed and bummed out. Plus, there were no jobs to even interview for. If you remember 2010, 11, and 12, the market was just terrible. So I grabbed my camera gear and dusted it off and thought, at least this is something. I'm just going to go out and start shooting some things. Well, we actually have a neat little airfield near my house, 52F, which is they've changed the name. I think it's Arrow Valley.
Arrow Valley used to be what, Northwest Regional?
Northwest Regional, but it's 52F. And they used to have a really dumpy cafe there called the Blue Hanger Cafe. Well, I grabbed my camera, went out to the airport, just got out of my car, sat down there at the end of the field and just photographed airplanes coming and going. Just trying to take my mind off of things, right?
Yeah.
And, these planes would come in and I'd take a few snaps and half-heartedly, and I'd watch them land and I'd watch them where they taxied off, and I'd hop in my car and I'd drive down to their hangar and be that weird guy that just shows up in your hangar. Hey, Gary Daniels, I took some shots of your plane. If you give me your email, I'll send them to you. Well, before long, I knew the majority of folks at that airport. Every Saturday was just a great time at the Blue Hanger Cafe. And I started making connections. And next thing you know, I'm meeting this person and that person. And it just started spreading. And I just started having aviation events to shoot. And in 2010, I went to Oshkosh for the first time. One of the guys at the airport had a Bonanza. And he said, I'm going to Oshkosh. You want to go with me? And yeah, sure. So I threw all my stuff in there and off we went. And I had no idea that Oshkosh was like the Magic Kingdom. It is the most awesome place, isn't it? And
right.
So, fell in love with that aspect instantly. And so anyway, it got started there. So 2010, started meeting a lot of folks. I've only really been at this for about 10 years. Now,
really,
I have to back up a little bit. Previous to that, whenever there was an air show or anything in town, I would be out there with my camera gear, but I was just a guy standing out in the crowd with my camera, taking pictures. And the other aspect too is I was a film guy, right? I didn't make the digital jump till 2007. So remember when we used to go to the air show with our maybe 10 rolls of film that we paid $10
At least.
for, we got to spend $10 to process it. So I know I'm out $200 just to go to this darn air show. And I'm going to throw away 3/4 of these slides anyway. Remember those days? Now with digital, I love going to the air show because I'll come home with 4,000 or 5,000 images. I don't care.
Wow.
That's what makes it wonderful, right?
Yep.
We can shoot anything.
Yeah.
Just shoot. Don't forget about the film discipline that we have to worry about.
Yeah.
Just blast away. So
I've heard some people refer to digital photography as kind of almost a handicap, and I see their point, but I don't know if I really agree with that, because it's just you have to evolve with technology, and that's actually one of the reasons that took me so long to get back into photography. And I was doing photography. I've been doing, not that I'm great at either one, but I've been doing the YouTube channel for, I think, right around maybe 10 or 11 years now.
Outstanding.
And when my dad taught me on black and white 35 millimeter. So similar kind of thing that, you go buy the film, you shoot a lot of it, you go send it off, you wait for it to come back. And then you look at you find the photo that came back, and you look at the bag going, that's the one I want. You look at the bag going 35A, then you go, what roll was this? Was this roll 2 or 3 or 7? And then you had to guess almost at what f-stop, shutter speed, and everything that you were shooting at. So I think 35 millimeter made us better photographers, because we couldn't just snap and look at it. But I love digital. I do. It took me a long time to go digital, because for one, the price was high at first.
Right.
And
and the file sizes were small. That was the big holdup for me, is waiting for them to get to a size that could be useful and make size prints and publications and one.
Very true. Very true. Very good point.
What you just said about 10 years. I mean, imagine what's gone on in the last 10 years, Eric. Since the Great Recession, there in just this past 10 or 11 years, just a massive explosion in the digital photography realm, in the social media realm. It's a whole different world than it was in 2009.
Well,
and
it really is.
It's kind of neat where we are today. And for example, what we're doing right now is streaming this show, just chatting, and other folks can see. And in this time of social distancing, this is a nice way for folks to get together and say hi and just spend some time in an evening. But I love the technology. I've fallen in love with it. It's made me a better photographer too, because being able to take more images. Before, remember, you kind of wait, I'll take that one and hope you got it.
Yes.
Now I'll blast through a motion sequence, or I'll try different shutter speeds while I'm looking at something, right while I'm shooting, or ISO right while you're shooting, different ISOs. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Very good point. In fact, we just Dan Lin. I don't know if you know him. He's
outstanding.
You know him?
Mm-hmm.
He's an all right guy.
Okay.
He's got a question. He goes, "What were your first digital cameras?" Mine was as far as DSLRs, mine would be a Canon 60D.
Okay. When I was VP at our marketing firm, we were trying this new little Sony ridiculous thing. Now, at the time, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. 480p, man. It was freaky. But I held out the Nikon D200 10 megapixel camera.
Nice.
But finally, they made a nice jump, and that one I grabbed and went with it. And I tell you, the first card I loaded in it, I didn't know anything about RAW, so I just set it on JPEG. Okay, cringe, guys. Sorry about that. For the first 3 or 4 months, I only shot JPEG with it because I just wasn't understanding what the RAW thing was. And
what's
now, how wonderful is RAW? What it has done for the photographer.
Yes.
To the editing capability you have with that RAW file. And how many times have you saved an image because you shot RAW, overexposed, underexposed, whatever, and you saved it because you shot it in RAW?
Yep.
I tell you, that's a miracle in itself.
Very true. Jeannie Human says, "Looking good, Gary."
That's my sister calling in from Atlanta, Georgia. Well, actually, Marietta. Sorry about that, Jeannie. So good. I'm glad I'm looking good. I was going to try some Grecian formula, Jeannie, but I just went ahead and decided to go total gray this evening. I did some highlights for you.
Let's see here. What's another one to hit on? I tell you, out of all, you've done many kinds of photography. Go and let me know some. Go and tell us some of the kinds of all different kinds. The aviation, obviously, that's what we're here to talk about. What are some?
And I appreciate you asking me to be your guinea pig on this tonight. I don't call myself an aviation photographer because there's just too many people out there that are really aviation photographers that are making a living at it, that are professionals at it, and I really admire their work. I'm a photographer that loves shooting aviation. And I've been fortunate over these past 10 years that I've made some really nice connections, and I've met some really great people. And I want to reach out to some of these folks. just because it's been part of my journey. Like I said, when I started out in 2010, I was really a mental wreck, and that photography was helping me move forward. And along the way, I met a great guy who lives here in the Dallas area, south of town, Lynn Cromer, just an outstanding individual and just a super photographer. And he introduced me to the International Society of Aviation Photography and that organization. So I signed up. And so there I am in 2010 at one of their events, met a bunch of great guys. Once again, that circle's growing. From that, from ISAP, International Society of Aviation Photography, ISAP, in 2012, we had a nice event out at the Military Aviation Museum in Virginia. And it was a rainy day. And from a distance, the C-46 Tinkerbell was sitting out on the grass. That's what's wonderful about that museum. If anybody hasn't gone to the Military Aviation Museum of Virginia, please put this on your bucket list. First of all, it's a incredible museum, but
Yeah,
they have their thick, lush grass runway there. It's just exceptional. Tinkerbell was off in the distance, the C-46, shrouded in fog, and it was just very mystical. And there was a line of guys walking toward the aircraft in World War II paratrooper attire. And in this misty, it looked like England, 1944. And so I walk out there across the rain and met these guys, and it turns out I met some of the gentlemen of an incredible organization based in Frederick, Oklahoma, called the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team. And these are living historians. I don't call these guys reenactors because they're not. These are living historians. These guys live, eat, drink, and breathe World War II history with the World War II airborne heritage. As a matter of fact, you're looking at a photo that I took of them in Normandy. 69 of us went to Normandy this summer to participate in the D-Day 75th commemoration. Here they are in their 82nd and 101 airborne uniforms here. These guys make sure everything is just spot on. But what makes World War II ADT so special is that all these guys that you see here have gone through airborne training. Some of these guys are veterans, some of them are not. Some of these are airborne veterans, some of them aren't. But ADT holds twice a year a 9-day jump school in the U.S. Army Airborne Protocol. And if you are got the heart for it and the physical for it, you can come up there and train. And by the end of the week, you've completed 5 jumps and you've got your paratrooper wings. 5 jumps out of a C-47. Wow. And it is pretty awesome. So since you're looking at these pictures, let me talk about these a little bit. So
yeah, please do.
69 of us went to Normandy this past summer because it was the 75th anniversary. And you saw some of the guys there in their uniforms. So we all met up in Duxford. We originally met up at our chateau in France, took the ferry over to Duxford. 30, I believe it was 43 of us were going to jump into France. So there were 24 DC-3 C-47 variants on the ground at Duxford. It was wonderful. Wow. And the English crowd was amazing. 10 of these C-47 variants were jump capable. And actually 11 of them were. And I'll tell you a little story here in a second. This photo that you're looking at here, this is one of our press events that we had there in Duxford. You see our guys in their very period correct attire. These were 2 of these are World War II veterans. One of them was a younger veteran. We were doing a press conference out by one of the aircraft here. Let's go to the next picture.
All right.
Now, this is just some of the on-the-ground stuff. This actually is a D-Day doll having some service done, and it was a very gray and windy. We were going to do a practice jump over Duxford. Once again, Duxford, Oshkosh, these are bucket list places to go. And here I am at Duxford. I cannot believe it.
All right.
Battle of Britain, Duxford. I mean, awesome, you know. And anyway, but the weather was very bad the day before the jump. Windy, wet. They had to cancel the jump. We were actually going to do a practice jump over the field on the 4th, but that had to be canceled. The But luckily, Duxford put a bunch of the 47s up in the air and at least flew them around for the crowds that day. Let's go to the
great. I like this shot right there. It just shows the crews, going, getting the airplane ready, pre-flight and so forth. And then you got those three Goonies just flying over. I mean,
well, it was amazing to see 24 of these aircraft on the ground. Several of them were in civilian liveries, and several of them. But get this, I can't tell you which ones they are. I don't have my article in front of me. I wrote a really nice article for Warbird Digest. 5, 6, or 7 of these aircraft that were with us, that crossed the channel with us, were actually on the D-Day invasion.
really?
75 years to the day. When we were crossing the channel, 6 or 7 of those aircraft were actual D-Day veteran warbirds.
Wow, that's
incredible.
Cool.
Incredible.
I know Miss Virginia, that one,
that was one of them, I believe. And the D-Day doll, that's all brother.
That's all brother. Everybody knows that's got a pretty rich history over there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Carl Stoffels owns Stoffels. I hope I'm not butchering his last name. He owns Miss Virginia, and was that one there as well?
Yes, Miss Virginia was there. I've got some shots of her in the air. Let's go to the next shot here. Let me see what we've got coming in right behind it. Okay, this was the day before the classic jump. We were putting a bunch of aircraft into the air there at Duxford for the crowds. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this one picture. And interestingly enough, the one that you see right up here in the foreground, that is, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is a Russian-built C-47. It was a Russian licensed C-47 called an IL-2 or something like that.
Okay.
But then, of course, you see some of the others. Let's go to the next picture.
All right.
This actually wasn't during the loading at Duxford. This was actually at Lessay, France, 2 or 3 days later. We were doing jumps over at Lessay, and the guys were loading up on D-Day doll in this picture. But this very much also shows you what Duxford looked like, very much. And we did have the gray skies and the typical English weather while we were there.
Right.
Let's go to the next picture.
Let's see here. There we go. That's a good one.
This is one of our team members. This is Keith Bunger. Keith is really make sure our guys have their uniform. I mean, he just gets it and understands it. Keith actually makes a lot of these pieces that you see here for the team members. But I shot this nice portrait of him with That's All Brother in his 101st. I believe he's 101st here in this attire. And that's an M42 jump uniform. That would be the proper uniform for the June 6th invasion.
How much did all that stuff weigh, roughly, do you think?
Now, as you can see here, he doesn't have his weapon with him, and he doesn't have some other elements with him. But those guys were going out the door about 80 pounds more than they normally weighed. You got to imagine the normal World War II guy, we've all grown since then, was about 140 to 150 pounds. He was about 5'7" to 5'10". And they just weren't thick and meaty like we are now. You know, these guys had come out of the Depression and hard times, and they were just wiry, strong, amazing young men. And with all their gear and weapons and ammo and grenades and this and that, they're going out the door, 80 to 100 pounds more than they weigh.
Let's see what the next one is here. Oh, that's cool.
Now, interestingly enough, I was fortunate enough to get to be on a camera ship on the cross-channel flight, and I was on a English-based C-45, which is the Beechcraft Twin Beech. And so the interesting thing about the formation, 24 airplanes, right? Heading to France, to Sanerville, France. I'm going to tell you a fun little story here. Kind of had a nightmare situation over in Duxford. We had 220 paratroopers ready to go. The day before, one of the jump-capable C-47s came in with a feathered engine. Overnight, they couldn't fix it.
Oh, no.
2.5 hours out from boarding the aircraft, and the organizer of the event called all the paratroopers together. We were in a large hangar there at Duxford. About 250 people gathered around, and he goes, we've got to cut 20 people.
Oh no.
20 of you cannot go. We do not have the aircraft. We can't get another aircraft over from across the channel because President Trump is over there. There's all kinds of airspace restrictions and funkiness going on. Plus, one airplane's down here. We're down an airplane, basically.
Yeah.
So, you should have heard the gasp and the angry, just people were upset because they'd been working on this for a year to 18 months, doing all they needed to do to be able to be standing here in Duxford, to be on one of these planes, to get to fly across the channel, to airdrop into Centerville, France, as a commemoration on June 5th. So the only thing that we could do, we had a manifest of 220 names. Each name had a number by it. And I helped the organizer, another gentleman and I, and we cut pieces of paper about that big and we wrote a number on it for the manifest numbers, right? Folded them up real tight, put them in a bucket. Then we went back into the hangar. Everybody stood around in a half circle, 200 and some odd people, the jumpers plus support staff. We probably had near 300 people. You could have heard a pin drop.
Really? Waiting for people to hear their names.
And a volunteer would reach in and hand the piece of paper to the organizer, and he would unfold it. And I'll just use my name. He would say, number 118. They'd look on the list. Gary Daniels, you cannot go. And you would hear someone out there cuss or, oh my gosh, and you'd hear all of his friends like, are you kidding me? Anyway, it was a gut-wrenching 20 minutes as we cut 20 people.
Yeah, I bet.
Anyway, so 220 were supposed to go, 200 went. 43 ADT guys were there to go. Only 39 got to go. 4 were cut of our guys. We all loaded up on the 24 aircraft, 24 C-47 DC-3 variants, only 10 were jump capable, loaded with troops. Here you see a D-Day doll. This is Miss Helen. She's a English-based P-51, and she was flying top cover for us. And it was really fun because I was in the camera ship, and she would come and go and just weave in among the aircraft and fly above and dive below and zoom up alongside. And then whoever the passenger was in Miss Helen, they were having a great time. But anyway, as you can tell, the weather was kind of ugly that day, but unfortunately we had the ceiling. We had the ceiling for the flight. We had the ceiling at the jump zone in Centerville, France, and we had low winds in Centerville, so we were able to go. So 24 planes took off. It wasn't a mass formation to where I could ever get a picture of all of them in flight. They were in V's of 3, strung out about 1,500 feet apart. The first 10 aircraft were the jump-capable aircraft. Trailing behind were just the follow-up airplanes. As we got to the English coast, they actually turned away and went over to Cannes and landed. And here's the other part of this story, and which is fun to tell. So we're lined up. We're thinking we're going to go. The stand-up has been called on board the aircraft. The hookup has been called. The guys are hooked up. They're standing up. They're pumped. They're ready to go. I'm flying alongside a C-47 that I'm ready to shoot, and I'm about 150 feet off. And all of a sudden, this airplane starts to turn into us.
Oh!
I tell my pilot, he sees it. We dip down. Here's the 47. We dip down. The 47 went over us. And at that point, we got the word that they had missed the drop zone, the Centerville drop zone, by 15 miles. They had just got wrong coordinates. So we've flown across the channel in
like D-Day
formation, just like it was in D-Day. They missed the drop zone. And anyway, they had to make a long turn back out over the channel and then back out to line up. The V's fell apart. There was a lot of gyration in the formations. The whole time, the guys are already hooked up inside the aircraft. Instead of their 5-minute hook up and out the door, these guys were standing for 30-ish minutes with the wall in their shoulders, trying to stabilize themselves because the planes were having to do lots of maneuvers. It wore those guys out. Finally, we got back and they came in over the Centerville DZ. They weren't in their 3-ship Vs. They were more strung out. but at least it was really still impressive as all those aircraft dropped their troops over the drop zone, and it was quite amazing to see. As a matter of fact, if you'll keep going through those pictures, I've got a shot over the DZ. If we can go back to those.
Let's see here. Let me find one of those. Keep talking while I look that up. Is that in
But
the
we
DZ
spent
folder?
a week jumping at other locations and sightseeing, and it was just an amazing week. Yeah, just go to that D-Day folder and just open those again, and we'll quickly clip through those.
I think I found one.
But I was okay. Here we go. This is Feet Wet from England. We're clearing the white cliffs there at Beachy Head. If I'm not mistaken, that's All Brother, the lead aircraft. I believe that's D-Day Doll, and then this is a civilian. I think that's Miss Virginia is the third one. Anyway, this is where we're leaving England, crossing the Channel, and that's All Brother. And I don't think that could be D-Day Doll, or that could be. I just can't tell.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from here.
Hard to tell. Anyway, I took those wide angle, and because I really wanted to get the atmosphere of the clouds, the ceiling, the cliffs, the English countryside.
Definitely.
And what was neat is as we were flying over England, heading for the coast, I could look down, and all the roads, cars were stopped looking at this formation as everybody was outside their cars. And right here at Beachy Head, which is just to my right, that you can't see, lots of cars were up on top of that. There must have been a roadway or parking lot up there. Lots of cars were there as we cleared the coastline. Let's go to the next image. That's all. Let's see. That's D-Day Doll and Placid Lassie coming across the channel. Okay, let's go to the next. You can see the weather was very. I'm so glad I was able to be on the flight, but photographically, it was really
challenging.
Challenging and dead. This is Betty's biscuit bomber dropping her troops over the DZ, and let's go to the next shot. And this just gives you a picture of how beautiful and green that French countryside was that day. This is the Santerville, France drop zone. You can see how the weather was a little iffy that day, but the winds were good. The ceiling was high enough, and there's two ships there at top dropping, and down below you can still see parachutes coming in low on the drop zone. Maybe all the pictures in that folder for that story.
I think that's all we got on that one.
Okay. But I'm very fortunate that I got to do that. And this is part of those serendipitous things that happened in my short 10-year journey, meeting all these wonderful people and meeting folks like you, meeting folks across the land. Every time we go to an air show or have an event or through the miracle of social media, it's so good. Well, for example, there was one photographer, Lou Drummond, who I follow, and we say hi on Facebook and whatnot. I'm in Duxford and I'm around the corner, and Lou's standing in front of me, and I'm looking at him because it's out of context. I know the guy, but I'm like, why do I know the guy? And he goes, "Hi, Gary." I'm like, "Lou." And we know each other through Facebook, and here we are in Duxford together. And you have these friendships, these funny friendships that you make with people all over the place. And then when you get to wonderful places like Oshkosh or certain air shows and get to all gather up, it's just a special time.
Definitely.
I think that's one thing that I've really taken away from all of this is why I've enjoyed it so much is everyone is just so nice. And all the photographers are so helpful with each other. We all just enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree, and that's nice because that's the way it should be.
It should be.
I remember getting started in this, and going, just being so thirsty for knowledge and like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Not only from camera, what kind of cameras are you using to what settings do you have your camera at? And then later on down the road, you kind of learn the logistical, sometimes nightmare of putting these shoots together, whether it's like something like the D-Day, which you're there to document it, or if it's your own air shoot, and stuff. And it's very gratifying to have it all come together.
And you're absolutely right. And the friends and the people that help you. And let's go through the images in this folder real quick. Let's hold here for a second.
Yeah, cool.
This is another great example. We all know Scott Slocum. Scott lives here in Dallas, Texas, and he's also associated with Cavanaugh Flight Museum. And so I have a small little aviation meetup group that Lynn Cromer and I started, and Lynn stepped away, and now I just kind of keep it going, called Dallas Aviation. And through that, we all get together, our local photographers, and do some fun things. And here's a shoot that Scott Slocum put together, flying the Cavanaugh Flight Museum Caribou. So we're shooting out the back of the Caribou. And, as we all know, this aviation photography world is a very much pay to play kind of thing. And the more that you have to pay, the more fun you get to have, right?
Yeah.
So I don't get to do the amazing stuff like Rich Cooper and Scott Slocum and all of them get to do. But occasionally I'll get a nice fun time. And so let's flip through this. This is the Sky Raider, Cavanaugh Flight Museum Sky Raider, following in tight behind the Caribou.
One thing's for sure, as far as that pay to play, even though you may not do as much as some of the other guys, you make very good of your time. I can tell you that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Because the images that you produce are they're second to none.
Well, go back to this picture real quick. I just want to point out something. Sometimes you get a serendipitous thing happen. Obviously, I've got photographs of this airplane with full propeller, right, with that white.
I like that because you can see
right through the pilot's face. And then I had this shot where it was just perfectly open, and I can see Stuart Milson smiling back at us. So that's my favorite shot out of that shoot.
Stuart's a good guy too.
He is a good guy. I hate him. Now here's Mark Cyrier in his one and only beautiful Yale. This is the oldest flying North American trainer, NA-64 Yale, that came off the production line in 1940. Then all of his brothers went to France. Out of the initial batch of 119, this one was held back. 118 went to France in the spring of 1940, were promptly captured by the Germans when France fell in June 1940, and all those airplanes disappeared into the vapors of time. But this remaining Yale and the ones that were made after that first batch of 118 were sold to the RAF, went up to Canada, painted bright yellow, turned into trainers for the RCAF. When the war ended, they were all sold to Ernie Simmons, who bought them, a eccentric farmer, moved them to his farm thinking that somebody was going to come and buy these one day. They set out on his farm till 1971, rotting, and Ernie died, and then there was a big auction, and lots of folks bought these Yales. A gentleman bought this one, and through its circuitous route of how it got to Mark Cyrier's hands, it ended up being restored in 1980 by a gentleman, and then he parked it in a hangar till 2014, I think it was. It just sat in a hangar, just in a dry South Texas hangar, which was good. So all the rubber in the airplane deteriorated, but there was no corrosion. Mark bought the entire plane and got it back to the condition you see here. And it's painted in its original French livery, which all the others went to France painted this way. Yeah. Then you got a BT-13 in the background, and let's see what else is back there. And then that's Lanny Parcells AT-6G, I think it might be, if you can bring that picture back up. Actually, but I thought it'd be nice to get those early trainers back up.
I got some shots of the Yale when Mark just got it.
Okay, excellent. I didn't know you had those.
Well, he and I had done some stuff together, and we've we shot a walk around on it, but we need to reshoot it. And but these are some of the photos that he sent me back when he first got it.
I did a nice story for Warbird Digest about the direction of this airplane, and I believe some of these pictures were in there, so I didn't realize you had been taking those.
No, I didn't take these. Mark sent me these.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Which is really cool because it shows it kind of just how long it had been sitting down. I mean, he's got log books. He's got
He's got
so much history on this airplane.
a lot of history on that airplane. Anyway, that airplane's based over at Hicks.
Yep. That's really cool. There it is.
There's the actual airplane in RCAF livery during the war. That airplane was actually, as the British say, pranged a couple of times, but not so bad that it was totaled. They, had to straighten out some wings and stuff again. There it is. That's the original airplane. That photo is probably from 1940 or so.
Probably so. Man, that's way back. I like the wheel pants on it. How they.
The interesting thing about these wheel spats that you're pointing out there, they went to Canada with the wheel spats on them, but they're cold, snowy, icy conditions. These guys on grass fields and stuff, those wheel spats would collect up that ice and mud and freeze up, and
there you go.
Problems. So they stripped them off, and evidently they just destroyed them because no one can find. Even Ernie did not have the wheel spats; they're just gone.
I think the ones that Mark has on there now are fiberglass.
Yeah, they're a fiberglass made, and that is the actual airplane right there in the foreground, 3464, back in about 1942, 1943.
All right, trivia question.
Yep. Don't ask me what those
airplanes. 3 of them are the same kind. Name all the airplanes. Starting at the top.
Okay, I have no idea. You're gonna have to tell me.
I would think Stearman, but the gear looks too short to be Stearman. Maybe an N3N or something like that. Then you got 3 gooses, or would that be geese?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know what the high wing is on skis. I don't know what that is. It looks like maybe a Fairchild or something, but I'm not sure.
Yep.
That I don't know. That's interesting.
And there are a picture of the airplanes out on Ernie's farm when they were just piled up out there before the auction in 1970.
Yeah, he's got a lot of documentation on that airplane.
So go back to my original picture so everybody can see how bright and shiny and pretty that airplane is now. There it is. So Lanny Parcells, T6 in the background. That's Hunter Riley flying the BT-13 in the middle, and Mark Cyrier in his beautiful Yale. Let's see what we got next after that.
That's a great shot. I love that shot.
Oh, thank you. That was fun.
Extra 300?
Yeah, and his extra 300 coming up nice and tight, kicking it a little bit, and nice propeller, good sun, bouncing out that prop. This is that interesting, what's the word I should use, where I've had people say, well, gosh, I really like those bright props, but the airplane's in the shade. Well, you know what? Because of the way the light angle has to hit the prop to illuminate it, you're always going to have the shadow side of the airplane facing the camera. That's just the way it is.
Yeah,
that's called physics.
That one looks great. I don't think the airplane's too much in the shadow by any means.
No, not at all. And that's okay with me too. I like the contrast of that. And
what I like about the shot, I mean, how slow were you shooting? 180th?
Well, that airplane's a little bit higher RPM on that prop speed. I was probably about 60th or an 80th. Probably 60th. That's probably about a 60th.
To get that on a 2-blade airplane with the lower RPM, you got to go down to like a 30th or something like that. But what I like about this one is right above the cockpit. If you look at the greenery,
yes,
that's blurred from most. That's how slow you were shooting, though.
And that's interesting that you say that. One thing that I love, and I watch all these photographers doing all these beautiful air-to-air shots, is, to me, the scenery is 45% of the shot. The airplane's 55% of the shot. I think an airplane and beautiful scenery and what's happening, it's just wonderful. And Scott Slocum, Paul Bowen, all those guys, they do such a great job with that. Let's go to the next one, see what we got.
Actually, Dan Lynn confirmed, he goes, that high wing in that one shot was a Fairchild 71.
Okay. I was 72,
50,
71, whatever it takes.
I was 50% right.
Okay, great. This is just, that classic Stearman model. This is actually a, let's see what model it is. This? I've got to look here. That's
N2S5. It says it's a Navy one, so it's an N2S5.
That's a Navy one, and I just, I love the trainer colors. They're just fantastic.
I do too.
and that's just a beautiful morning, and we're just flying around taking pictures. Let's
Wow.
see what we got next.
That's such a fun airplane to fly in.
Isn't that beautiful? I would
Now
love
this one I'm not jealous at all on. I gotta say, I've been trying to do a walk around video on the Hind with the Cold War Air
Well,
Museum.
you know what's frustrating about this particular photograph? It's a win-win no matter what happens as far as what happened that day. But once again, Cavanaugh Flight Museum, Scott Slocum. This was when the Cold War Museum down in Lancaster was in operation, and they've got their Hinds down there, which they don't at this point, from what I understand. But they had 2 flyable Hinds. We were actually the whole reason for this shoot was both of the Hinds in the air together.
Oh wow!
We're in the Caribou. We're loaded up. We take off. When we take off, I see both Hinds on the ramp. One's spinning, one's not. We get up in the air, and only one joins up with us. So it turns out they could not get the other one started. And I just like, come on, that once again, that's aviation photography. It's equipment, and who knows what's going to be going on. But this was a fun day. We got that Hinds up nice and tight behind us, and got in the beautiful light and got some nice shots out of it.
Oh, that's a gorgeous. I've always been a fan of the Hind. I had a little toy of it when I was in probably junior high or something like that, and I always thought that was the coolest thing. Let's see what else we got here. Taylor.
Yeah, there's old Taylor Stevenson, and the cool thing is we've got a vibrant T6 community in Texas. A lot of T6s, and they came and stacked up behind me. I believe that's Conrad Huffstetler up there at the very top. I think that's Trey Carroll in the middle. Anyway, I'm in a SNJ T6 variant, so I'm in the gunner seat, so I'm facing backwards. I'm in Stephen Bill's SNJ, and that is such a fun thing to do. When I get to fly in the T6s, to me, flying with that cockpit wide open, oh my gosh, I don't want anything around me. I just want to be out in the open air. I've got my cool little fabric flight helmet that I wear, and the reason I do that is to keep my headphones from being ripped off my head and going away. So this secures them nice and tight, and so my mic and the whole thing. And so when I'm flying in the back seat of a T6, especially facing rear, and those guys are stacked up just nice and tight behind you, that's but I'm not very good in those T6s with big propellers. There's just too much vibration or something. I'm terrible at below 250, 200. I just start buzzing out.
I see what you're saying, though, and there's a lot of air transfer too. So you've got
I think I'm just vibrating all the air. I can never get a very substantial propeller when I'm shooting these airplanes, and the rest of the airplane nice and crispy.
T6, that is kind of a hard one to get a really good propeller or get a good solid disc. I'm sure there's guys that have done it, but boy, it's come to think of it, that's not one that you see all the time.
I think if I had a gyro stabilizer, that could help me. But
probably. But
maybe if I was a different photographer, it could help. But
well, I think the propeller that you got on there is just fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
To be in the airplane getting to shoot this. How lucky was that?
Now, as far as composing the shot, did you ask for them to stack high and like that?
Yes. Now, in this case, I can't talk to them, so we brief very carefully about what I want, and we know what the sequence we're going to do. And I'm also able to talk to the pilot, and he can relay instructions. It's really great when I can talk directly to him, but if I can still relay, and some of it through hand signals too. Mm-hmm. And I have to put, once again, kudos to Scott Slocum. I've really enjoyed what I've learned from him, getting to do my few aerials that I get to do. I've learned everything from Scott, and it's just been a lot of fun.
The guy's a wealth of knowledge, and he's a nice guy too, But I mean, Scott's one of those guys. Whenever he starts talking, I try to listen, to try to pick up a nugget here and a little or whatever,
Well, he knows what he's doing, and that's what he does. And he does a fantastic job at it. And he probably could have handheld that and shot that beautifully. So just to, once again, I just put this P-51 in there because how awesome is just getting to fly alongside a P-51.
Yep.
Let's see what else we got in there.
All right. Let me pull it up here. Now, this is cool. I like this one a lot.
That was getting that P-39 and P-63 together. And once again, this was Kavanaugh Flight Museum shoot we did out the back of the Caribou. And the situation with the Caribou is you're pretty much just going to have these nice head-on shots. If I'm shooting in the back of a A36 or something, where do you get the more three-quarter profile imagery? But that's still fantastic. That's just a lot of fun.
Well, and they're kind of rare warbirds at that.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, really cool to get those together. Let's see here. Oh, there you go. I like that one too.
Now this is back to ADT, and they own two C-47s that they actually do their jump training from. So if anybody out there who's listening wants to, and you've got the physical and the heart to want to spend 9 days and go through some strenuous training and finish the week with 5 jumps under your belt, you're going to be jumping from these guys right here. So that's a lot of fun. And this is a side view of Boogie Baby. Boogie Baby is a World War II veteran, but she flew with the RAF. And after the war, she went to the French Air Force for a few years, and then she went to the Israeli Air Force till 1999. In 1999, the Israeli Air Force was decommissioning their C-47 fleet, and ADT bought this aircraft here. What's unique about this plane is, since it was never in a civilian conversion, it's got all of its military configuration inside, with anchor line, navigation radio stations, everything, all of it's still in there. And the airborne jump seats are in there. And so they brought this thing home and refurbished it, restored it, and repainted it as a troop carrier, D-Day troop carrier configuration, and named it Boogie Baby. Boogie Baby has been in continuous operation as a jump platform since '99, and we don't know how many people jumped from it before then. We estimate somewhere between 17,000 and 20,000 jumpers have jumped from Boogie Baby, and it may hold the world's record in parachutists that have jumped from this aircraft. Another interesting thing about this photograph is this is a heavily photoshopped composite. If you'll zoom back out so I can kind of walk people through, there's no way that you're going to get 3 parachutists in that configuration. We did this for a poster. Normally, the guy at the bottom would already be way back. The guy just coming out, by the time the guy comes out the door, the guy that's just under the airplane would be, almost past the tail. So what I did is I flew alongside Boogie Baby, shooting. So one shot is my master scene of the aircraft, the one that I like the best with the background. This background had farmhouses, another road in it, this and that. I touched all that out. But as we're traveling alongside Boogie Baby, I was shooting continuously of the troopers jumping out. So the bottom troopers from one shot, the middle troopers from one shot, the guy coming out the door is from another shot, the airplane is another shot, and then the background's been heavily retouched to get rid of buildings and this and that. So it came together quite nicely. It makes
Man, that's good. That's really, really good.
And the guy, and zoom back to the guy that's left the airplane. He's just below the tail. Zoom in on him, just below the tail there. He is in classic, perfect aircraft exit attitude there. He
really
looks fantastic. We wanted to make sure the guys coming out of the plane were in pretty good shape there. We didn't want guys upside down because that happens.
Right. There we go.
Now, this is a scene from the Caribou. I put this in here so people can kind of get an idea of what it looks like from the back of the Caribou. So we've got the P-51 pulled in nice and tight, and we've got the ramp down, and we have 3 guys in the front and 3 guys standing when we're shooting, and then we'll rotate them out. So they get several minutes of shooting. Then the aircraft, the subject aircraft, falls off, falls back. We change out people, and then they pull back in and continue shooting. So that's a neat thing that the Kavanaugh Flight Museum does. They haven't done it in a couple of years, and I hope they do it again, but we'll see. All right. Hey, how are we doing on time?
I got time, but let's see.
Do you want to talk about the CJAA shoot?
Yes.
let's do that, because that was fun, because we got to do that together. And I really enjoyed working with you on that.
Oh, that was fun. That was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And
Other than the weird noises you'd make occasionally, you know, I was okay
what
with
happens
it.
when you get old?
One thing that I admired about you is I was there to shoot stills and then to write a story, which went into Warfare Digest. I was amazed watching you going 90 miles an hour, keeping all these aircraft cameraed up, and managing all these parts and everything. And then when we got home, you still had like weeks of video to put together.
And
So
I'm about to start editing the big flight of when we did our air shoot with how many did we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, what 6 or 7 airplanes?
five up when we did that.
5. Okay, yeah, that's right, 5 up. So I misplaced some footage of Mr. Cole's cockpit footage. What was his first name? He was the lead guy. What was his first name?
Gary. Mm-hmm.
Gary Cole. That's right. Oh, he was one of the Garys. That's right.
That's right. One of the Garys.
He had the cool helmet, the white with the red flames.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's tough to be around guys like this, because I feel humiliated most of the time. Just a goofy photographer, and these guys are flying the jets. This is Russell Armstrong in this photo, and he organized the CJAA events in Sulphur Springs, and that is his L-39 with the Thunderbirds livery in the background.
And he was the one that asked us to shoot that with him.
He's the connection, and we're very thankful to him. He's just a great guy.
Super nice guy. Super nice guy. That was a great opportunity. You know, that was our first time to shoot together, so that was kind of special.
Yes.
For me there.
But it wasn't that special, but it was okay. You know, since I was shooting for a story, I was shooting in a photojournalistic mindset, so I was also trying to catch some of the general scenes. So here are some of the pilots. That's Rick Boone and Scott Glazer during one of our briefs. Let's go to the next shot.
Warman.
Warman, call sign Warman. He was the lead instructor. There are the guys, several of the pilots there talking the day's activities.
Now, in the middle, blurred out, is Charles. Is it Charles? Yes,
he's the ATAC pilot that we've all seen escorting
V12,
the V280.
Yeah.
The new Bell aircraft. What is it? The V280 or something? And we always see that L-39 aircraft trailing with it,
chasing it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the pilot. I hate him.
I remember one of the nights we were all sitting where we went out to that brewery, and it was before we went to the restaurant, and we were all playfully showing each other's cell phones, you know, photos on our cell phones. And Scott Glazer right there, you know, Charlie V12, the blurry guy in the middle, he had some cool stuff. But what's the guy right there in the tan? What's his name again?
Glazer?
Scott
Glazer? Mm-hmm.
Scott Glazer. He starts pulling up some photos, and we're just like, okay, that's like spaceship kind of stuff.
This was very reminiscent of the scene in Jaws where everybody's showing scars, and then the guy shows an incredible scar. Well, that's what Scott did to us, shut us all down. We're just out hanging open.
And that's Gary Cole looking at him. He's got he had the
He's got the L-29.
L-29 Delphin, that's right. And then we got what's the guy on the left hand? Oh man, he had
Rich Dahl flying the Provost. Provost. And I was also taking just general scenes of the gentleman to be used in the story, which you were too. We were all just shooting away. That's Rick Boone's L-39. That's Charles and Charlie, I think is his name, and Rich in the Provost.
Oh, look at that sky.
Coming back that evening, we had a really pretty sky.
Oh, there we go.
This is you helping me with this night shot, even though it's got my name on it. It's really your shot. You've got your
that was yours.
We've got your Lume Cube lights behind each of the wheels, which I love those Lume Cube lights. And then this wonderful handheld LED bank that at 100%, just walking and just lighting that airplane up. If you can see the back of it, you've got your menu and stuff. This happens to be a Photix, and the amount of light and beautiful diffused light it throws out. So you walk alongside the airplane, and as long as you're moving, obviously, the camera's not picking you up, and you're just painting the airplane just with that beautiful, soft, pretty light as you walk by with this handheld LED light. Pretty cool.
And that takes a few times. A lot of people think that we layer the shots, or that I do, and that's one thing that I need to learn how to do, just for the sake of diversity and flexibility. But we just kept on going until we got that shot.
That's right.
That is one photo.
Well, it's actually, this might be two. And the only reason I say, if I remember, I asked you to come back and on the second round and light the tail section a little bit nicer. Yep. Somewhere I've merged the vertical.
Okay.
The other part of the image, just because I like the way it was lit a little bit.
I need to have you show me how to do that, because I don't know how to do that yet.
I just pay a guy to do
it. Now we got the Victory Aviation Marchetti.
Isn't that pretty?
That is cool. That's got the original. That's got the Singapore markings on that.
That's right. The Singapore livery on it. Mm-hmm. Livery, very neat.
I don't know if it's common knowledge, but they just got another one.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Don't tell anybody.
Well, and then that's Rick Boone's L-39 in the East German Air Force markings.
Now, this one being camouflaged, the darker paint, even though it's got a gloss coating on it, the darker paint, it's a totally different challenge. The lighter color paint, when we're light painting it, mm-hmm. it bounces it back real easy. Like Russell's T-Bird L-39, it bounces it back really easy. The orange does too. Well, it took a few more tries, if I remember correctly.
There was also a little happy accident here. These things happen as you walked around with that light, and as you walked back here behind the canopy to throw some light up there, and the top of the canopy caught that light as you're walking behind it so nicely that it defined it up against that nice black sky and gave that canopy good shape. So that's just one of those nice events that sometimes happens in your favor very well.
You got lucky. I'll take luck.
Luck, yes. Luck is a big part of what we do, isn't it? Now there you are.
Yeah.
Frosty Day.
Yeah, that's one of the mounts that we put on the we can put that on the experimental category aircraft.
Mm-hmm. And for folks that don't quite know what's going on there, you back out one of the screws, the skin screws of the aircraft, and then you see that silver element down at the very bottom up against the aircraft. The screw goes back in, screws that down tight, and then the black element, as you can see, he's really cranking down on the clasp to mount it to that. That's rated at what, 200, 250 miles an hour?
I've tested them faster than that. I don't know what I'm not sure what the manufacturer speed rating calls. I've tested that similar mount, maybe that exact one, on the A4 Skyhawk, and I think we got up to about 400 plus knots on that.
Incredible. Yeah. Wow. So if you hit a B at that speed, it goes right through your GoPro then, right?
It takes it out.
Let's see what else. And there you are, working hard, getting some nice footage of the jets all lined up there.
You know, it's funny. Most of the time you're taking it. I had no idea that you're shooting these things, but I appreciate you doing that.
Let's see what else.
That's a gimbal.
Yes.
It helps to stabilize the makes the footage so much easier on the eyes to watch, because it levels it out, and it dampens out the steps, vibrations, and everything. Yeah, there we go. I like this one.
Now here we stacked them up just so we could get a nice group shot of all of them. So you've got Russell's L-39 Thunderbird livery at the bottom, Rick's East German L-39 second. Then I'm not sure who was flying the Machete in the middle. Rich Daw flying the British Provost number 4, and Gary Cole flying the L-29 at the top.
I can see his face, the guy flying the Marchetti. I just can't think of his name. Super nice guy.
Yep.
Can't think of his name. Let's see here. Next one. Oh, there you go.
Here they are, just strung out more as we were making a turn. I just liked that shot. There was just something about the way they all looked together.
I like the uncoordinated stuff because I've always liked behind the scenes kind of stuff, and that shows the progression of getting into the slide into formation.
Well, another thing I liked about this shot that we put in the magazine is it showed the various airframe designs that were really. It's just neat to see that.
Very true. Ah, look there.
Yeah, now there's Russell pulling in nice and tight in his L-39, and then Charlie took over as his instructor in the back seat, and I believe the next shot, Charlie's a hot dog, and so he quoted this.
Watch this.
Watch this.
And Charlie was such a nice guy. I mean, hearing him in the brief and the debrief, you know, and also watching, because I had GoPros on all these guys, so watching the GoPro footage of the cockpit footage, and every instructor that they had was just amazing. But there's something about Charlie that was just, he was so calming and so reassuring, and it's like the guy, extremely talented instructor.
Yeah, I felt the same way. He just super sharp. See what we got next. Now that's Gary Cole's L-29. Now at this point, I'm in flying right seat in Richard Dawes' Provost. Now I'm using that neat little rubbery, very wide. Gosh, what am I trying to say?
A hood.
Hood. Thank you. Because when I get up against the plex, I can press that in and kill all or most of the reflections. It dampens out a lot of the reflections. Now, a funny story about this, hold that right there for a second. I was talking to Gary. I said, man, you just need to polish this whole thing. He goes, listen, I did that much. And then he said, and I flamed out. It was too much work. I'm never going to do that. This is the way it's going to look.
I was hoping you would talk about that. And what's funny is that you see a couple of my GoPros on there. I got that one.
Yeah, look at that. Got a GoPro out there.
Got that one on the pedal tube, and then we got that one. And I guess the tail one was on the other side. What else we got here? Oh, there you go.
Now there's that little hood that I'm using while we're shooting.
And that's a screenshot from one of my GoPros.
Yes. We had a GoPro in the cockpit there.
That's
and that's of Rich as we're just flying along in our formation training. And I like these kind of shots. I think all photographers do. Go back to the Provost shot. We all like these shots of the aircraft, right? But I really like the detail on the people and the miscellaneous that builds the story.
I agree. Oh, this is cool.
You know, I love when you're burning that Jet A and you just turn the air into jelly. I just love it.
That is cool. That was over at Mount Pleasant, right? Or was
when we landed over there. Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Oh, let me get back to
that. Now here we were trying to do something innovative with the group shot. I just didn't want a bunch of guys standing up against a brick wall, so we could identify them. So that was hard work for you. Eric actually moved each one of these aircraft around. That guy knows how to drive the tug. We put him in a half circle out there, and then I put the guys here, and we got up high. And I had them do some airplane stuff, because they're pilots, right?
Yep.
And we got a real nice group shot of them with that.
That worked out great. Oh, there we are.
There's those two good-looking guys. That's Maverick and Goose right there, man.
That was our camera ship for the Air Baron.
Yeah, that was fun.
There you go. There's the hero shot.
Yeah, you got to have a hero shot. There's my little floppy lens hood thing that you can get at B&H Photo. That thing is a lifesaver if you're finding that you're needing to shoot inside out through the plex.
That's it for that one.
Okay.
I tell you what, man. I think we've covered. Hold on. Let me go back and make sure. I think we covered a lot of stuff. There's a few things that we didn't cover, but we could always do this again. I mean, we actually got a few folders that we didn't even touch on, but we've already gone over an hour, so we might pick this up at another time. Would you be up for that?
I would be totally open to that. I don't want to bore anybody, and an hour is probably about all anybody can take of us. My
Right?
wife can only take about an hour of me, and I've got to go into my study. So,
Well, cool, man. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And
I want to show you one last thing.
yeah.
You never asked me what kind of equipment I use.
Oh, that's right. You're a Canon guy, right?
I use my World War II K-20 aerial reconnaissance camera. That's what I use in everything that I do. So
That's the one that gets you the good prop blur, right?
yeah, that thing is awesome. Look at that.
How much does that weigh just holding it?
Do you see that?
How much does that weigh just holding that?
Oh gosh, holding it probably about 10 pounds. This camera is a K-20 aerial reconnaissance World War II camera. It was this size is the kind that was pretty much issued in almost all larger aircraft with carried on board. If you saw anything interesting, just pull the camera out. You see this big handle, and a big screen to shoot through. So the sighting was super easy. I'll point it right at you. See how easy it is to shoot through it. There's the lens.
Wow.
So the average kid that didn't, they were all kids, 18-year-old kid could grab this camera. It's got a big old flight gloves on. Crank it, hold it with this hand, just eyeball it through here. You got to put that ball right there in the middle of the viewfinder on the target and crank away. And it had a roll of film in it, 4x5 roll, and about 100 feet of film in there. And so that was a common camera.
I dare you to bring that on your next air-to-air shoot and pretend like that's your real rig.
Yeah. Most people wouldn't know what that is, and they'd just be looking at me like, whoa, that guy's awesome.
He's got the big camera.
So there you go. Well, Eric, I really appreciate this, and I hope this worked out, and I hope we didn't bore too many people too much. And thank you.
We had a good time, and we got more material to cover, so I think we ought to do it again.
I think so. I'm up for it.
What are you doing in the next hour? No, I'm joking. No, thanks, man. We're going to sign off, and thank you, Gary, for hopping on and sharing us your story about yourself and about some of the adventures that you've had. And we got more stuff to cover with you next time we meet up. How about that?
All right. I sure do appreciate it, and I look forward to who you interview in the future too. So,
take care, Gary.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye, everybody. Hi, my name is Eric Johnston, and I'm an aviation photographer. Join me as I document all kinds of aircraft from big to small and cool to, well, really cool. This video is proudly sponsored by Air Models. Check out their excellent variety of resin and die-cast aircraft models with over 400 commercial and military aircraft and helicopters available. Click the link in the description to see more from Air Models.